afternoon.
Good morning.
Or good morning. It's been a long morning. Welcome to it says August 7th, but it's August 21st, the rescheduled regular board meeting of the Savannah-Chatham County Board of Education. I will ask that we did send out notice of this in our agenda, and I've been assured it has been sent out. If we would now please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance with the flag.
To the left.
I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. I will now accept a motion to approve the agenda.
Make a motion to approve the agenda. Second.
It's been moved and seconded. All in favor? Aye. No, no.
Well, just wait for the vote to complete.
Yes, it's complete, yes, I'm
Okay.
sorry.
Make a motion to amend the approved agenda with the addition of item 7.27, resolution of claim number 415-2023-02061, and to delete item 7.28, resolution of claim charge number 415-2024-01379.
Have a second?
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. All in favor? Okay, thank you.
I would, Chair,
Yes,
I would like to make a motion to remove item 8.02.
we have a motion on the floor. Do we have a second to that motion? I'm sorry? Yes, it's been moved and seconded. Any discussion? Yes.
As the board representative of District 1, where Jacob G. Smith is located, this is a time-sensitive matter. The renovations for Jacob G. Smith have been kicked down the road for literally years. This contract also includes renovations of the swing site, and it's important that we move forward on the renovations of the swing site in order to prepare for the relocation of students so that we can move forward in the renovations of the school. So I have concerns around taking it off of the agenda, but Mr. Smith or Representative, if there's additional information, or perhaps we can leave it on the agenda and hear the agenda item, and if it should need to be tabled at that point, we could do so. But I'm hesitant to fully remove it from the agenda due to the time-sensitive matter.
Any other discussion? Okay, I will. Any other discussion?
Yes, Reverend Smith, it's your motion to remove it for the agenda to have it considered at the September meeting?
Correct.
Or is it on the basis of receiving some additional information today?
My desire is to remove it and place it back on for next 2 weeks away from now, which is not a huge time gap.
Ms. Grabowski, is the time-sensitive nature of the request something that would be affected if it were moved to the September meeting?
I would have to ask the facilities to understand the implications of the delay. But it's been delayed 2 weeks already because our board meeting was too late, 2 weeks later than it was supposed to occur initially.
Okay. Madam Superintendent, did the 2-week delay to this meeting negatively impact the project?
We can't move forward with the process of, I'm sorry. So we can't proceed with the work until we get approval from the board, so every day is a delay.
Mr. Catchmark.
Dr. Howard Hall.
I'm sorry, Howard Hall?
Yes, my point was, is, Madam Vice President, is we need discussion on this, so if we don't discuss it today, we will be discuss it in September. And since there will be a discussion on this, I think that we should wait until September, 2 weeks from now.
Okay. Mr. Catchmark?
I guess my question is why, what is 2 weeks going to do? This has been on the agenda. We've known about this for 6 weeks, 5 weeks, 3 weeks, 4 weeks. We've had an opportunity to ask questions. Why do we need 2 more weeks is what I'm asking.
Very good question. I have had a chance to review it, and I also have had the opportunity of having more questions to surface from both myself as well as the community in which we serve. So with those things, I have not had the opportunity of getting those answers just yet. So I would feel comfortable with pulling it at this moment. That's why, on my side.
Ms. Grabowski?
Reverend Smith has certainly support trying to provide the information that you need to feel comfortable with this decision. If we can go ahead and have some discussion today, then that would allow the full board to better understand what the concerns are. So if there are concerns that we need to get, it would help to move us forward if we're at least able to have some discussion today, more fully understand what your concerns are, with the hope that then, because my concern is if we don't discuss it until September, and then there's still more questions, and then it gets put off yet another month, then at that point, it's a 2-month delay from when we were originally supposed to make a decision. So if we can at least go ahead and have some conversation about it, if we can leave it on the agenda, have conversation about it, and then at that time decide we're comfortable moving forward, or we need to table it until September, that's just my request, that we can at least go ahead and leave it on the agenda, get the information that might be helpful, but certainly respect your motion to pull it if that is your desire.
Okay. Any other discussion?
I think Ms. Hall had something she wanted to say.
Ms. Hall, did you have something to say?
Yes, I think we can begin with the discussion, especially since I see that we have some guests who've been waiting here all morning about this issue, that we can discuss it, and then if we need to table it after discussion for the September meeting, we can do so. That would be my suggestion.
Okay, thank you. Okay. Will you read Mr. Smith's motion again?
Mr. Smith moved, and Johansson Brown, seconded to remove the item from the agenda to consider it at the September meeting.
Okay. All right. All in favor, please raise your hand.
Hoskins Brown, yes. Reverend Paul Smith, yes. And Dr. Howard Hall, yes.
Okay. All opposed?
Johnson opposed, Ringman opposed, Mr. Moss opposed, Mr. Kachmar opposed, Ms. Grabowski opposed.
Any abstentions?
Ms. Connie Hall.
I wanted the amendment that we would go ahead with discussion, and then I guess I needed to change the Reverend Smith's amendment, that we do discuss it, but if it needs to be tabled after discussion, we would certainly.
We can do that at that time, after the
So
discussion.
then I could make the motion then?
After,
So-
yes.
Okay.
Okay, all right.
Well, then at this point, then I will vote yes to Mr. Reverend Smith's request.
Okay.
Wait, so that,
So if you want-
5-4 to not
if
table.
If it's to be left on the agenda, you would vote against. If it's to be left on the agenda today, you'd vote against pulling it.
yeah, so
So
that
you
makes
vote
me.
yes. You vote
wanna have
yes,
it.
that's the case.
When you vote no, and if you want to table it, you would.
Everyone are announcing it and hang on.
You said you wanted to
You want
discuss
to
it.
discuss it?
Okay.
Are we clear?
Mr. Chair, could we?
Yes.
Could you recall the count, please?
Absolutely. Ms. Edwards, would you please read the motion again, please?
Decision again was moved by Paul Smith and seconded by Leon Hoskins to remove the item from the agenda to consider at the September meeting. Paul, Tanya, and Leon actually voted.
It was 3 yes,
Mhm.
and how many no?
6.
Johnson, Reedman, Catchmark, and Grabowski,
And I'm asking
Moss.
that I
And
to
Moss.
the yes,
and Moss.
to the yes.
Okay,
So it's 5-4.
So it's 5-4,
okay,
correct?
thank you.
Okay.
So it remains.
So it remains on the agenda. Okay? Sorry. It threw me off there. Sorry. Our announcements, actually our announcements, because of the late date of this meeting, have already happened. So I hope everyone enjoyed the Pulaski K-8 ribbon cutting. It was wonderful. The Teach of the Year flag racing was a great event. The board retreat will happen after this meeting today. And the board retreat, we'll have it again tomorrow. The same location from 8 until 3:30. In remembrances, Jermaria Dabrahel Orr Johnson, 9th grade student at Windsor Forest High School, date of passing July 3rd. Maria Pollock, Beach High School, 10th grade student, July 20th. And Cynthia Banta, West Chatham Middle School teacher, July of 2024. If we'd all stand for a moment of silence, please. Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Board President. Moving along in your agenda, we do have an amended agenda as approved. You'll note that items 6.01, 6.02, 6.03, 6.04, and 6.05 have been deleted, and they will be considered for first read and discussion during the September 4th regular board meeting of the Board of Public Education. We do have one item to bring back to the board under board matters, which is item 6.06. This is board policy JHC, student organizations. You'll recall that we did have a first reader on this particular policy language during the June board meeting. We received some good feedback from the board. Those components have been encapsulated and provided early on in your in this agenda. One of the things that we wanted to do was to make sure that we were fully legally sufficient with the language. So one of the things that did slow this policy down and bring it back to you in the normal cadence of first and second read was us to make sure that we could hit the sufficiency of the requirement to have student clubs and organizations and information about student clubs and organizations listed in the Student Code of Conduct book. So that is one of the changes that brings it to why we are bringing it to you for a second read today. We have run that through our board attorneys, and we feel confident that with the language as written, that we have met that legal sufficiency. That language specifies that we will list that information through the Student Code of Conduct. And for the board, you'll remember that we now have the Student Code of Conduct digitally on our website as allowable by state law. And we can create a hyperlink there to take families to a list and a menu of all that information that will be required in this particular code section. The other components that were changed based on the feedback we received from the board, was really to put the ownership and the management of student clubs and organizations in the hands of the administrators. So we have done that with the language. One piece you'll see in there specifically is enumerated that it is to the onus of the school administrators to determine the place and time and location within the schoolhouse where clubs and organizations would take place and would occur. We've also expanded to make it very clear that the clubs and organizations are for students enrolled in Savannah-Chatham County Public School system as a district. This is a second reader, so we are asking a board action on this and would ask that the board now adopt this policy as written under the second read component for your board policy procedure.
I'll accept the motion.
So moved.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion? Wonderful. All in favor?
Unanimous.
Thank you.
Turn the agenda back to our board president for the consent agenda, followed by goal 4.
All right, I'll accept the motion to accept our consent agenda.
So moved.
Been moved and seconded. All in favor?
We have 8 in favor.
Yes. Any opposed?
Catchmar oppose and Michael Johnson oppose.
Okay.
Sorry.
Okay.
Math is wrong.
Okay.
7.
7.
7 in favor.
Yes.
That would be Mr. Catchmar with the no and Mike Johnson with the no.
Okay. All right. That brings us to RFP? No,
Goal 4, financial report.
go for, okay, sorry.
Good morning, everyone.
Good
Good morning.
The financials that have been submitted to all of you takes us through the end of the last fiscal school year, June 30th. At this point, I would say to you that those numbers are preliminary. We are going through our financial reviews at this point, with our numbers having to be submitted to the state by September 30th. Following that, we will go through our annual auditing process. So these numbers will eventually have some changes. But at this point, this is what we have to submit to you. Do we have any questions that you may have? We can answer at this time. There being none, thank you.
Thank you very much. Go ahead. You can go on.
Okay, strategic priority 4, efficient, effective, and equitable resource stewardship. RFP C24-01, eSPLOS CMR services for J. Smith Elementary School renovations. The purchasing department received requests for proposals from 7 offerers in response to RFP 24-15, eSPLOS CMR services for J. Smith Elementary School renovations. The intent of the solicitation was to establish a contract for a construction manager at-risk services for the J.G. Smith Elementary School renovations as outlined in RFP C24-15 and all related documents. Proposals were received from Balfour Beatty Construction, Dabbs Williams General Contractors, J.E. Dunn Construction Company, McKnight Construction Company, Paul S. Atkins Company, Summit Corporation, and TQ Constructors, Inc. The requests for proposals were evaluated on the following criteria: company information, 5%, experience on similar projects, 20%, staff planning, 15%, LMWBE program, 15%, CMR at-risk price proposal, 35%, and questions, 10%. The selection committee members were SLED Hemley, project executive, Peter Gannon, project manager, Robert Youngblood, project manager, Nicole Callahan, project manager, and Scott Barnes with Barnes Architects, Teresa Phillips, purchasing agent, serving as selection manager. Administrative reviews were conducted, and all 7 vendor responses were deemed responsive and responsible. After the committee's evaluation of the RFP responses, a follow-up interview was conducted with the 4 highest scored offerers: Balfour Beatty Construction, J.E. Dunn Construction, McKnight Construction Company, and TQ Constructors, Inc. After interviews, it is recommended that RFP C24-15 East Gloss CMR Services for J.G. Smith Elementary School renovations be awarded to Balfour Beatty Construction with a guaranteed maximum price of $20 million. The scope of the work in the RFP includes the renovations and modifications to the Montgomery Swing site to prepare this facility to receive J.G. Smith School after the 24-25 school year is completed. Construction documents for the Montgomery School are ready for release, and to keep this work on schedule, the CMR needs to begin issuing these documents for bids, awarding subcontractors, mobilizing, and starting construction at the Montgomery site as soon as possible. Design is currently underway for J.G. Smith School renovations, and pre-construction services are also needed upon contract award. Therefore, the contract award will allow the CMR to incur costs and be reimbursed as a part of the cost of the work in accordance with the contract. Pre-construction costs to be reimbursed are a maximum of $30,000, including 0% for CMR fee, and a maximum of $3,099,092 for CMR overhead costs and expenses, including a 3.25 CMR fee on all construction costs. Thus, be it resolved, upon the recommendation of the superintendent, that the board approve the award of RFP C24-15 East Block CMR Services for J.G. Smith Elementary School renovations to Balfour Beatty Construction with a guaranteed maximum price of $20 million. It is further resolved to allow the CMR to commence work on the Montgomery Swing site renovation phase before completion of the J.G. Smith design. The board approves payment of up to $30,000 pre-construction fee for the project, and after review and approval by the superintendent and district staff. The contractor may begin the performance of the work up to $3,009,092 to be paid upon review and approval by the superintendent and district staff in the ordinary course of business, which may include submission and review of pay applications after work is performed, and the applications are submitted by the contractor and reviewed by the design professional and district staff.
And I think Dr. Watts has some more comments on this.
Thank you. As a Black woman, I want to first fully acknowledge that entities such as minority and women-owned businesses have experienced challenges, generational challenges, over significant periods of time. So this topic is of quite interest to me personally and professionally. There is documented evidence that progress to level the playing field has been slow. So I have carefully looked into our LMWBE practices as a district, specifically as it relates to this particular CMR recommendation. And I have found the practices that were exercised to be fair and equitable. Not only is it our policy as a board to maximize the utilization of qualified local minority and women-owned businesses, there has been, in my observation, a very strategic and deliberate manner in which our process has evolved. We make deliberate efforts in our district to build the capacity of our local women and minority-owned businesses so that they can take on bigger projects. As a district and myself, I certainly realize the benefits that these enterprises bring to our community, which is why we want to keep this a focus. Not only does it close local wealth gaps, but minority and women-owned businesses also strengthen the community ties and build collective social responsibility. And as an educator, our local minority women-owned business entities also inspire future generations of entrepreneurs. So again, as an educator, this is an important topic for us to be considering. I have looked at the data, and simply looking at just our women and minority-owned businesses, they have received about 20% of our eSPLOSH funding, and those just are in consideration of our larger projects. If you pull out and look at local contracts that we have awarded, that number is even larger. So again, I thought in the spirit of transparency and accountability, it was important for me to say how important this topic is. I appreciate the inquiries and the questions and the push. In our country, that is how things have always been solved, when people push and they ask questions and they want to know more. But in my investigation of this particular situation, I feel very strongly that things were done in a very fair and equitable manner.
Thank you. Okay, I will now accept a motion to approve.
So moved.
It's been moved and seconded. Before we get into discussion, we do have some people who have signed up to speak, and I need that list.
It's right here.
Thank you. Mr. Michael Woodard. Mr. Woodard, you have 3 minutes. Thank you.
How y'all doing?
Hey, how are you?
Good. So my name is Michael Woodard. I'm the owner of MPW Construction, 5th District. I have 3, possibly 4 questions for you. My first question is, what is the breakdown of the 40% LBWBE participation? Okay.
What's the number 40%?
Where'd you get 40%?
It's a breakdown of the 40% of the LB.
I thought it was 40 million. It's 40 million.
Okay. Let's move on to the second question. My second question is, what is the monthly average E-plot revenue amount? And in conjunction with that question, what's percentage spent with minority firms?
I don't have it by the month though. He said the monthly breakdown.
Figures at the halfway mark.
We don't respond.
Okay. The third question is, what is the risk and why was it solicited as a construction manager at risk.
He's still there.
So normally, when we have people come before us to speak,
Okay.
they are to speak. If you have questions, please submit those to us and we can get them back to you. But this is not the venue for that. Yes, this is for comments.
Okay. This is my,
But I am taking your questions.
okay,
Thank you.
Yeah, they will be answered.
okay. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you.
Yeah.
Okay. Next, we have Mr. Tony Riley. So Tony is first going to read a letter from Miguel Camacho, who could not be here.
Thank you so much. Good morning.
Morning.
I think, let me clarify something for Mr. Wood's question. His question about 40% stems from a meeting on the fourth Sunday of last month where Mr. Formey, who is the consultant for minority participation, local participation, he stated that 40% of the East Blossom money was spent locally and with local minority women and men-owned businesses. So I think Mr. Wood was trying to find out, could you delineate what compile that 40%?
Got it.
Okay. So, good morning, ladies and gentlemen. This is Mr. Camacho's statement due to the lateness of the meeting. He had to leave. He asked me if I read this for him. And thank you all for indulging me. It says, public boards, commissions, and authorities have the responsibility to set policies, and staff has the responsibility of executing what has been set and adopted as policy when it comes to utilizing taxpayers' funds. Many public policymakers give too much authority to staff and others of those that they delegate to act on their behalf, thereby giving them too much discretion in decision-making following evaluations and bringing recommendations to the governing body regarding purchases of goods and services. In effect, policy becomes a useless and worthless statement that has no value or meaning to issues on which elected officials, governing bodies vote in the interest of the public and its tax-paying base. He says, I am here today as an interested and concerned citizen and a local business person asking that you, the Savannah Chatham County School Board members, put some teeth in your already adopted policy as respects your spending of public dollars. In the process of your appointed representative bringing recommendations to you to make decisions on award of contracts, have them present to you the points given to each offeror on every criteria that was developed by them, so that you will know the weighing of each value category for Jacob G. Smith versus school renovation and addition projects.
Speakers at halfway point.
This measure would be of great benefit to the public in future procurements. Acting responsibly to those who elect you to office is not a demonstration of micromanagement. He says, thank you so much for your indulgence.
Thank you very much. And now your comments, Mr. Riley?
All right. So, I'm glad for the delay because of the delay of this meeting and the storm, I had a chance to do a little more research into what this policy is all about. So what I have is a copy of the regulation, which was originally adopted 7/29/92 and last reviewed 2/1/17. And I also have the policy, the board policy, which was adopted 11/4/92 and last reviewed 3/2/21. Okay, so simply put, it says proposals, the award shall be made to the responsible and responsive offeror whose proposal is determined to be most advantageous to SCCPSS, taking into consideration the evaluation factors set forth in the request for proposal, which shall also include evaluation, if applicable, of the offeror's past efforts to meet the goals of SCCPSS. local minority and women-owned businesses enterprises. Policy, the offer's performance of past school board projects and the aesthetics of the past project, the evaluation factors shall be the basis for which the award decision is made. So my question, based on that part of the policy, is what are the goals? And then the next thing I want to ask you, the assignment of substantive work to LMWBEs or LMW teams is, for the purposes of this policy, the minority business enterprise is an independent continuing venture that is at least 51% owned by a minority person that meets the criteria for disadvantaged businesses.
Halfway point.
A disadvantaged business is a small business which is owned, controlled, and managed on a daily basis by a majority of persons, not limited to members of a minority group who have been deprived of the opportunity to develop and maintain a competitive position in the economy because of social disadvantage. And those people should include African Americans, Hispanics, Asian Americans, and American Indians. My question is, what are y'all's expectations from local Savannah-based, not Jacksonville, Florida, not New York or somewhere else? I understand that Baker Biddick is the company that y'all have intent on awarding this contract to, but I also understand that they have not completed the project at Pulaski. So how could they be given another project, and they haven't completed the first project? My other question is, you all say y'all want to continue doing work and due to the pandemic as a way of providing economic stimulus. What economic stimulus came out?
Please wrap it up. You're over your 3 minutes.
Okay. So if you just answer those questions and tell me why there's a company from Jacksonville, which is not a part of the metropolitan statistical area, which is Chatham County, Effingham, and Bryan.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you. I would like for y'all not to pass this today and consider it the next meeting.
Okay, so, sorry? Oh, yes. I'm sorry?
Can he leave Curtis?
Oh, will you please leave, did you leave your comments with Mr. Hediger?
Well, it's kind of a draft.
Okay. All right, now comments from the board, and I know we have quite a few. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start on this. No, we're going to start with you, Dr. Howard.
No, don't do that. Don't force people to talk if they're not ready.
I'm the one who seconded the motion. So is it that, Rob?
Correct.
That has been our tradition.
Okay, it actually should be the person who made the motion, but go ahead, Ms. Hall.
I didn't.
Ms.
Yeah,
Hall
that's what
made
I'm
the
saying.
motion.
All right. In the interest of brevity, I'm going to read my statement because I can read it much quicker than I can speak. I have been extremely proud of the passage of all of our East Gloss referendums. The opportunity given for greater use of our general funds to advance instructional programs, hire additional staff, and improve student outcomes is immeasurable. It is therefore a great desire of mine to see the successful passage of an East Block 5 to continue this economic powerhouse in our operations and as an economic boost to the citizens and businesses of our county. I was approached several weeks ago by 3 District 3 constituents and 2 persons from other districts regarding concerns they had after attending a recent NAACP meeting where Dr. Watts was the featured speaker. I did not attend that day, so I am unsure of all that was said regarding our LMWBE policy. Suffice it to say, these persons were unhappy with what they heard. I invited 4 of them to my home, and sitting around my dining room table, they accused me of becoming lackadaisical about the execution of our policy and felt that I was not living up to my campaign promises made earlier this year. While the accusations were aimed at me, I can confidently state that they were meant for all of us sitting here in elected office. The main complaints that were voiced: They have complaints against our description of local to mean a business with an office and at least one employee within the metropolitan statistical area, replete with business licenses and tax certificates. They complained about our use of several of our contractors to serve on the qualifying committee in judgment of other contractors rather than the exclusive use of Savannah School employees. We have more than enough experienced project managers, they feel, actual employees, to conduct this process. The total disregard of our agreement to use the services of our CMA designees, Pat Mathis Construction, the Pelote Corporation, and Brownstone Construction as project partners. It is a contention of these constituents that local should be defined by the simple question, can you vote for the East Blossom referendum? If you can, you're local. If you can't, you're not. All the non-local MBWE firms listed are of no value to the East Blossom voter and should not be enlisted unless it is proven that they offer a service that no business in Chatham County is able or willing to responsibly offer. Now remember, these are my constituents saying this to me. On both the Pulaski K-8 project and the Jacob G. Smith project recommended for our consideration today, Balfour Beatty partnered with New Jack Companies Incorporated, a Lakeland, Florida firm, to provide project and support staff. My guests considered this a demonstrated lack of respect for our board policy. No one in Lakeland, Florida can support our East Block program, yet we funnel our funds to them rather than to our local junior partners. Why is there no project partner with J.E. Dunn on the Mammoth Windsor Forest construction site, nor with McKnight on the Grove Stadium job? Again, the thought in the community is that these CMRs feel no need to comply with our policy, no necessary accountability, because board members like myself and staff, as represented by our purchasing office and our capital projects team, are not paying attention and have decided that accountability is not important. I feel, Connie Hall feels, there is little use in spending time in a lengthy debate of who's right, those voters dissatisfied with our efforts, or those of us who can prove we are right and that we are following the policies outlined. What I gathered is that if we don't create a win-win solution, we will endanger the chances of a successful E5 referendum. We received a lengthy questionnaire from former State Senator Diana Harvey Johnson, who also attended this NAACP gathering and has also been made aware of the pulse of the community regarding our award decisions. The environment that has propelled our successful E1 to E4 initiatives seems to be souring among many pockets of our support, and the sincerity of our efforts is being questioned. Our behavior may address the letter of the policy, but not the spirit of the policy. Suppose we are totally in the right. We on the Board of Education, we're totally in the right. Will being right help us attain our goal, which is successful passage of E5? And I want to quote one of my favorite poets. From the place where we are right, flowers will never grow in the spring. The place where we are right is hard and trampled like a yard. But doubts and loves dig up the world like a mole, a plow. And a whisper will be heard in the place where the ruined house once stood. How do we resolve this issue to the benefit of us all? Their suggestion was that we create an advisory board headed by our attorney, Mr. Dennison, representing our legal interests, to include a CMR prime such as Mr. Ryan Price, 2 women business owners such as Ms. Mastriani at Greenline Architecture and Ms. Pat Mathis of Pat Mathis Construction, 2 NAACP board members, 2 capital projects managers, and 2 other local business owners, along with Mr. Formey and someone from our finance and purchasing office. Request them to come up with a 2024 policy update and recommendations that provide the win-win outcome we are looking for. In that way, East Ross 5 will have assured passage through the full endorsement of most of our stakeholders. Thank you all for giving me the time to read that. Thank you.
Ms. Grabowski?
Thank you for your comments, Ms. Hall. I hope you will share those with us. I am a business owner. I'm a woman-owned business. I may not share the same racial or ethnicity concerns of some of our constituents, but I fully understand and support the need for us to have a progressive LMWBE policy. Personally, professionally, and as a board member. And I appreciate these concerns being brought forward. However, I do not think that holding this project, or East Los for that matter, hostage, is the right way to approach the situation. If we feel that we need to evaluate, I'm not opposed to exploring a committee to evaluate our policy and making potential recommended changes to that policy. I don't have the history or the institutional knowledge of some of our board members. I know that this is a topic that has been discussed time and time again. And I'm certainly in favor of continuing those discussions if we need to do so. However, my first concern is for our students and for making sure that they have the educational environment that they deserve. And to bring this, to focus this very large and complex conversation around one project that is time sensitive, that needs to move forward because it's a domino effect. Jacob G. will be the first school to go into the renovated Montgomery Swing site, but it's not the only one. So if we delay this decision, it delays all the decisions that follow it. And if someone wants to protest this award, that is within their right to do so. But I don't think if this is an issue that we need to evaluate, that evaluation and that policy change is not going to happen in the next 2 weeks. So I cannot support holding this project back because of a larger concern that apparently has been lingering for some time with the mention of some of the other projects that were mentioned. So I would respectfully request that we can move forward on this project. I certainly support continuing conversations and dialogue around what our policy is and if our policy needs to be amended. However, we need to do right by our students, by our teachers, by our faculty, by our families, and our community in moving forward with a project that is running the risk of falling behind schedule and having implications that will continue for many years to come. Thank you.
Thank you. Dr. Hoskins Brown, do you have anything?
I only have the briefest of comments. I don't love the round robin approach because sometimes I benefit from hearing what others say who have developed more comments. I'm hearing an amen from down there.
Yes, you're getting it.
Okay, all right. So if someone else would like to speak and have some particular comments they'd like to raise, I'm happy to yield the microphone. I will just say that I was at the NAACP meeting. Our summary of the MWBE approach at that meeting was not our best presentation of how we communicate that information, what our priorities are. It didn't have the tone that I expected, and I'm not surprised that there was a response to how it was addressed. I think we should be ever prepared, given the investment that the community makes in us and in these type projects. I think we should be ever prepared, but even if there's no investment, anytime we go to a body or a group or a community on whom we have relied for support, we need to be ever prepared to answer questions about issues that are of greater interest to them. And we weren't entirely prepared to do that. as a governing body, we've talked in some informal sessions about what can be accomplished with E5, what we think we can do with E5. So if we want a successful passage of E5, then we're going to have to address these concerns. And I don't have all the answers on how that's done. A lot of what Mrs. Hall said sounds very strong to me. This is a difficult issue. I'm not insensitive to what Ms. Grabowski has raised. You know, as a teacher, no student ever contests their grade until they're failing. You know, I never have anybody come to me and say, "Oh, I want to talk about my grade now." No, we don't talk about this process until we're in the process, and when we're in the process, it's always time sensitive. We don't talk about how we do these things, and I mean, all of our construction projects are time sensitive, and still we open the multi-campus late. So I am struck that there's a challenge with solving the problem that does not meet the timeline, but we don't address this issue ever until we are looking at an RFP process that people are perceiving as being broken. So, yeah, I don't have the answers, but I do think that we need to consider it and fix it, and I think that this is an important discussion. I suspect part of the reason that Reverend Smith wanted to move this discussion to September was so that it would not be squeezed inside of a short period before the board retreat. So I don't know if we're going to fully evaluate this conversation that we need to today, but I acknowledge having heard some of the same complaints that Ms. Hall heard, and being at that meeting and seeing that discourse, that it is an underdeveloped matter.
Okay, at this point, anyone who would like to speak, please raise your hand. Dr. Howard Hall?
Thank you. The question now is CMR, the CMR method as opposed to hard bidding. CMRs are usually implemented when there's a project that's at risk. We are renovating 2 schools. We're renovating Jacob G. Smith and we're renovating the Montgomery site. So what is at risk? Why did we choose this model, the CMR model for renovation? We have highly qualified project managers that's on board with us as the school district that are salaried. They have salaries. They work for the district who can I believe that they can actually manage this particular project if it was a hard bid. But since it's CMR, to my understanding, CMR, they receive 2% of their entire project, which would mean $2 million, if I'm correct. If it's a $20 million project, they automatically receive $2 million to do the managing of that. Why would we pay them $2 million when we have project managers for the district that can manage that same project? Also, when I look at the 15% LMWBE program, there's no information on here that details that 15%. Local, the where, and the who, LMWBE. So it's not enough information on this particular resolution. And not only this, I think there needs to be changes in the future. Whenever we have a contract, we need to see it all within the resolution so we can see exactly what's going on regarding our LMWBE, because it just says 15%, and it's not giving us any detailed information of the local and other minority.
Okay.
Is there anyone here to answer the question?
Question about CMR?
Yeah, why CMR instead of hard
Yeah, the question,
Because our last one
Restate the question.
Open a year late.
Why the
Exactly.
selection of CMR process? Mr. Honeycutt coming to the
Yes, thank you. As you know, there's a number of project delivery systems that mechanical have used in the past. There's a general contractor, the hard bid, and there's a CMR. And we just recently did a hard bid. It was a full job. We had one bidder. And so that market does not seem to be the best market right now. So consequently, let's take a look at doing something different. When we do a CMR, the one advantage that construction management gives us is we can utilize their resources and in doing pre-construction, doing the estimating, doing the value engineering, keeping us on budget. So that's always been a big advantage in using CMR.
The hard, when you refer to the hard bidding, are you talking about, what project are you referring to?
Well, I'm talking to any time when we do a general contract. When you do a hard bid.
No, you said the last project was hard.
It was a Formy. I'm sorry, Formy.
The Formy was a hard bid.
Yeah, that was a hard bid. And you have the architect do complete drawings, put together construction documents, and then you put the project out for competitive bid. Hard bid is that reference. So with the CMR, again, one of the advantages with the CMR is you have an architect, and as the architect is designing, that construction manager is also getting input into that design. He's providing estimates. He's providing, like I said, ideas to keep the project on budget. And then, of course, he goes out and bids the project, and he gives you a GMP. And again, that's a type of contract that has been used with the CMR. So the risk aspect, construction manager at risk, is that GMP that he provides to the district.
So why did you combine the two? Why couldn't it be separate? Why couldn't the Montgomery site be a separate bid and Jacob G. Smith as opposed to combining them both?
Yeah.
Making a CMR?
Okay, I'm going to interject here. We are getting into micromanaging. That is not what we do.
Respectfully, I have a right to ask these questions.
Well, I understand that, but we are not telling our staff how to run their departments.
I'm asking, I'm not telling.
Okay.
And as a school board representative, I have the right to ask.
Mr. Board Chair, just to bring in a point of order, we bear the risk as the board to deal with issues related to a failed construction CMR process. And we've been embroiled in legal matters using this kind of model. So evaluating the risk and the advantages of those models seems like it is appropriate discussion at this meeting.
Continue.
Okay. And the question was why keep put them together. The primary reason for doing it is to put together a sizable project that will bring in the interest that's going to give us the best price and the best project. And so we had one project that was ready to go with construction documents. The other project, the J.G. Smith project, we just have an architect and very schematic type documents. So you can't really bid that project. So the advantage of putting them together is that you have one contractor who's responsible for doing the Montgomery site and having it available and ready for J.G. Smith when the school year is over, so that they can move in, and then we can do the J.G. Smith project. So by breaking them up, you are risking that you might have delay on one, delay on the other, and then you do not have that nice continuity that we need to have as far as having one project ready to move in, and moving them out when it's completed. So it actually does, even though it is two different schools, it's really one project.
And then the final question I asked earlier about the 15%, I'm not sure, I heard Jacksonville came up. So are our LMWBEs local, or are they out of town?
I'm sorry, 15%, I'm not sure what
I
you're.
think that's 15% is the weight of the.
That's the weight.
Who is working with the contractor?
But
What
I-
LMWBE?
But I think the 15% that you saw in the agenda item, that's the weight. that-
So now I'm asking the who will be assisting?
It's New Jack Incorporated out of Lakeland, Florida.
So that's not local.
We also have an office here. The Balfour PD is.
I do want to add one comment. That I just heard that we had a legal issue with one of the projects. It was actually hardwood, which also got delayed. Hardwood does take longer, and hardwood is more complicated because you have to have 100% drawings right. If we went to J.G. Smith with hardwood, we would not be able to finish it on time, the way we are about to do if we let it happen.
Thank you for that.
Thank you. Mr. Johnson?
A couple of things. One's actually pretty simple. I think it. I guess I got to get a little bit. Is this better? The first thing is pretty simple. In the description, it said at a maximum of $3,099,092 for CMR overhead costs and expenses. But in the thus be it resolved, it's only $3,009,092. That's what I'm
Clerical error.
Clerical error. Yes, no, maybe. The other thing is, I know we're talking about a lot about LWMBs, and I get the concern. I understand that. I understand the information that staff has already given us. And one of my questions was about why combine the two projects. Just knowing that we've had issues with contractors in the past when they had contracts for two different projects that were completely separate, but the contractor we still had issues with. I am skeptical of giving any one contractor two different projects at the same time. I understand the flow of it, but I do have issues with relying so much on just one contractor. So I have my concerns.
Dr. Brinkman?
I guess we're all making comments. I'm glad the community has reached out. CIC has been talking about reevaluating their policies. I would love to have this conversation at CIC when we aren't at a precipice of, do we need to make a decision? Because we do. I mean, this project has changed 4 different iterations, I think. I don't know, Mr. Grabowski could definitely tell me how many times it's been ready to go, and then we change it, and back and forth. I fully support CMRs. Our last hard bid, I think, was one of our first projects that opened late in an ESPLOST ever. And also we had to pull things from that project that aren't completed, so that hard bid did not work out at all for our students and for our mission. I'm glad the building is done. It's a beautiful building. It just didn't work out. On our policies having teeth, we have policies. They have a rubric. They follow a rubric. I always ask questions of the community. I asked the district to give us more information. The district provided that information to clarify why we were doing a CMR, how everybody was rated. So I would please ask the community to engage the board members outside of a sole project so that we can better create that process. I do not believe board members should be in the process. We can help create it, but we should not be in the process. I'm so happy that none of us are scoring these rubrics. And there is a rubric, they follow them. We've looked at those numbers, and you can definitely tell that it wasn't like these 5 individuals were sitting in a room going, everybody give this person a 14, everybody give this person a 12. There was definitely differences in how they saw each one of these contractors in the process. So that to me says that the process is working from the staff side of the house. I do not know on the side of the 5 people, I mean, 4 of them are us. I do not, I'm guessing the person from Barnard Architects is the architect.
They are not, which is a question I'd actually submitted.
Okay.
So I don't know if we have a response to that.
I'll move on. I don't understand the Jacksonville conversation because we don't vote and the superintendent doesn't recommend subcontractors. I don't think Balfour Beatty is a Jacksonville company. On the terms of can they vote for East Floss, they have people that live in Savannah that can vote for East Floss. So if that's how we define local, then somebody could be a local within a year. I mean, they've been in our community for 21 years. So I don't know how we establish local, but I think that's a bigger question that we can discuss in CIC in another workshop so that we can hear the community, understand what these players in the community think disadvantages them or advantages them so that we can make a better policy and a better rubric so that our staff can use that rubric to meet all of those goals for both the district but also for our constituents. So I look forward to working on that in the future, but I fully support that we need to move forward with this project to make sure that the other 3 projects that need to go into the swing site are not years behind schedule.
Mr. Smith.
Thank you, sir. My statements, I'm going to do my best to make them short and brief. I believe that this is a very multifaceted and complicated topic. I want us to make sure that we keep the main thing for me. The issue or the concern that I have is not centered around the district, is not centered around the school, it is not centered around the work being done, nor is it centered around the students being robbed of anything special and unique. My push is to make sure that we as a board that we're advocating for equality and that we are not only advocating for it, but that we're receiving it, that we are implementing that. This has been a topic, as it has been said, through many different board members. It's been a topic and a hot button topic from many different voters, many different community members and communities. So I believe that we need to make sure we reevaluate and that we constantly and consistently make sure that we're keeping our community dollars in our community as much as possible. That's the importance of East Floss. We want to make sure that we do our part to sustain it and to keep it going because it's doing a remarkable work for our district as a school system. So again, I have no issue with the work being done. I have no issue with Belfort. I have no issue with them, and I want to go on the record of saying that. But my concern is I want to make sure that with a project of this size, our local firms that can do the work, that can do quality work, that can do and have been in the community for several years, we want to make sure they're getting their piece of the pie continuously. I'm not saying that they have not in the past, but I want to make sure that they are in the present and ultimately in the future.
So this issue has come up every few years since I've been on the board, primarily when somebody who didn't get a contract award is upset about it and reaches out to board members. I would disagree respectfully that we never addressed this issue. I've been on the board since August of 2011. I've chaired CIC since January of 2012. Every year at the beginning of CIC meetings, the question gets asked, do we need to reevaluate our policies? Every few years since I've been chair, we've held open community meetings soliciting feedback from our community, and we've invited architects, engineers, contractors to give us feedback on our procurement policies. What that led to from 2012 on was we changed our procurement policies so that we broke contracts down into smaller pieces so that smaller LMWBEs would have the bonding capacity and the ability to bid on smaller components of these jobs. So instead of putting out a $30 million contract where 3 companies could bid on it, we'd break that out into smaller pieces so that smaller companies could bid on it, could gain the experience of working with the district, and we could build capacity. Couple of our goals, I mean, the superintendent mentioned some of our goals, but our stated goals as a board since 2012 has been to build capacity so that small local LMWBEs could grow and bid on larger jobs. The question I would ask, Ms. Hall, the people who came to you, is this. You've been bidding on these jobs since before any of us were on this school board. You've done multiple jobs. Why have you not bid as a prime on any of these projects? That's the question I would ask. Let me finish.
Okay.
She thought we were asking her to
I thought you were actually asking me that.
But that's the question I would ask them, and I will tell you, and I will say it publicly, I've had this conversation with 2 of the 3 people who were in your living room and said, you've been working on these projects for years. Why don't you bid on a job as a prime? You have the bonding capacity, you have the insurance. So our goal is to build capacity. We have built capacity. If you look at our LMWB percentage, in every eSPLOST, it's been between 20 and 30%. When we compare to other regional municipalities who celebrate being at 8% or 9%, I mean, we've taken pride we've deliberately changed our policies to build capacity, and that has led to more competition among bidders for our jobs, and it's led to a higher percentage of our eSPLOST money staying local. January, we had a new CIC meeting. We specifically said, do we need to reevaluate our policies? Is it time to readdress our procurement policies? Is it time to readdress how we go about evaluating these contracts? Nobody said, yes, it's time to do that. A couple of other issues I wanted to point out. The last time these issues came up, the first time the discussion of what is local came up, several local companies said the definition of local should be if you were born here, you're local, otherwise you're not. We got legal advice on how can we define local, how can we award points on local. There's some municipalities around the country that have implemented a policy that says if 2 bidders are otherwise equal, we're going to put a thumb on the scale in favor of the local company. And the question came up, can we do that? If we have 5 bidders and 3 are within a point of each other, can we choose the local company even if they were lower? And back then, when we asked this question, the response we got was legally we cannot do that. We're not bound by the same rules as the City of Savannah or Chatham County. We're bound by State Department of Education procurement rules. And so we've explored how do we define local. We've asked, can we put a thumb on the scale in favor of local companies, all else being equal, and we're told no. So what we came up with was a scoring system where LMWBE is part of the overall evaluation, but we can't stand alone say, you're local, you win, or you're a minority company, you win, or you're a women-owned business, you win. We can use it as part of the overall scoring, but not as a standalone decider. So our policy right now, I think, is if you have an address and you're physically conducting business in the county, you're local. The other issue is, this contract's going to Balfour Beatty, which is listed as local. Their subcontractor partner maybe is non-local. But the entities who came to you, Ms. Hall, they might be local, but the company they partnered with, the prime contractor here, is not local. They're from Statesboro. So, Ronald Reagan said one man's freedom fighter is another man's terrorist, right? Perspective matters. If I'm local, I should win, even though my general contractor isn't local. But I don't want to give a job to a general contractor that's local because their subcontractor partner isn't. I mean, what are the standards we're applying? So I say all this to say I am 100% for having another discussion about our procurement policy. I've led the charge on breaking up these jobs into smaller pieces so we can build local capacity and to build local capacity with LMWBE contractors. But the challenge I'm hearing today is I didn't get this job, I'm not happy with it, let's blow it up. This board has voted on our current procurement policies 2 or 3 times. And we've asked these questions that we're asking now. Some board members weren't here when we asked those questions, so I understand there's no institutional knowledge. And I also understand it's perfectly appropriate to re-ask these questions and have these conversations on a periodic basis. And we can do that, but we asked for more information on this particular bid. There was nothing in that information that made me say the process is flawed. The superintendent thoroughly reviewed this process, and this is really her first time, I think, getting in the weeds on this issue. And she sat here today saying, I think our process was fair, I think it was equitable, I think we followed our policies. And what we're sitting here saying, we don't trust your review and your judgment of this, and we don't like it because of the outcome. So I don't think this is the right place to say, let's have a new reevaluation of our policy. If the board disagrees, so be it, but I'm supporting the recommendation.
Ms. Hall? Ms. Hall?
I hope we can keep this discussion very friendly. It's very important, as I said in my remarks, because the success of E5 is important to all of us. The people in my living room were not these 3 CMA agreed entities. Pat Mathis was not in my living room, nor was Ben Pelot, nor was Miguel Camacho. They are the 3 entities, however, if any of you who were here remember, we did have an agreement with those 3 entities. We call them our CMA. Mr. Hediger, maybe you can refresh our memories on that, but that was it wasn't a policy as I recall, but it was an agreement that they would be representative in a rotating manner of our junior partners. I had street committee people in my house. Someone who worked for a plumbing company. These are people who believed me when I went out and campaigned this spring that I want to see more economic development of our business community in Chatham County. And they were accusing me of becoming lackadaisical. That when I first came on the board, I was very outspoken and all, but now I let things, like I sit at all the CIC meetings, and I never saw that we were using UJAC out of Lakeland, Florida. I didn't see that, and I don't think, in fact, that it was on the sheet, which means staff, when you give us these proposals, make sure that all of that is outlined. That Balfour Beatty is the prime, but that their junior partner is from Lakeland, Florida. So I, as a board member, don't have to be embarrassed when someone off the street says, why are you supporting this when we have people here in Chatham County to do this work? Especially if this is a double project where they're not just doing Jacob G. Smith, but they already did Pulaski K-8, and now we're going to have them do the swing side. That's a lot of money, and I need those people who can vote for East Blos to be on our side. And that's why, Dr. Watson, I'm thinking, if we could, if the question is out there, shall we review and look at this policy? Yes, we should. And should we broaden the tent at who sits at that table to give their input? Because I think when this policy first came into effect, Dr. Hoskins Brown, I don't think I was on the board. I think it happened even before 2012. So it is time for a refresher and an update, because we can make this a win-win. Like I said in my comments, it's not about whether we're right or not. It's not at that point now. It's at the point, can we get enough people in Chatham County to vote an East Block 5 referendum? That's what we want. So I'm willing to, whatever that takes, let's make this a win-win situation. Okay, thank you.
Okay, Dr. Hoskins Brown, then Ms. Grabowski.
I just want to remind our colleagues that although the work of CIC is because the work of CIC is important, it is just as important that what that committee does finds its way to the main board. All of us do not go to CIC meetings. One of the favorable practices that, and all of us are not going to come to CIC meetings for reasons that are valid for those individuals. One of the practices that our chair committed to revive is having board members or committees give short briefs, short reports of, hey, this is what's going on in that area. And that would be appropriate, because if the topic had come up, hey, CIC is wondering, does it need to reconsider this or that? I would have said, oh yeah, I think we should, and I would like to hear what the thoughts are on that process. All of the conversations that happen around different issues don't always find their way out of committee, and therefore they don't always, all board members don't have the opportunity to have discourse. So I think this is an appropriate place, because this is the only place that I have to give discourse on it.
Ms. Grabowski.
I just want to say quickly, again, we need to revisit policy all in favor. I want us to be careful, and getting more information about the respondents, absolutely fine, but I want us to be careful when we start talking about looking at seeing, we've received the score sheets on all the evaluations in both phases of the process in their totality. I just want us to be mindful and careful as we continue this conversation. We don't need to get into the weeds of evaluating individual proposals, because the MWBE is a very important part, but so is the experience, so is their staffing. It is one component of the evaluation, and so as we continue this conversation, I just want us to be careful that we don't get too far into the weeds, that we're not able to really focus more on the policy of how we're moving forward, if that makes sense. And happy to have more conversation and sidebar as we move forward.
Thank you. Anyone else? Okay.
One last thing, Mr. Moss. The question was raised, why don't some of these junior partners raise up an active crime? Well, for what I remember on those sheets, it says 20% depends on your experience on similar projects. So we don't have the capacity here with Mr. Pelot's corporation or Mr. Mathis's construction or Brownstone. They have not individually had a $20 million process to do a building to build already. So they would never qualify 20% on experience on similar projects as a prime. You must, if that's what we're saying, that you must have shown where you have built a project, a replacement school or something already, so a similar project, or in this case, a $20 million project. If you've not done that on your own, then you're gonna get marked 0 on that 20%. So building capacity, again, is all part of this thing. I thought it was a bonding thing, that they didn't have the bonding maybe, so that's why they didn't try to become a prime. But no, it's right here within our policy that we say you must have 20% similar experience. So again, let's revisit the policy and make this a win-win situation so we can get E5 passed.
Dr. Brinkman.
Are we sure? I don't want to speak into our policy because I don't have it in front of us, that it's 20% with similar projects. I was under the understanding that it was 20% experience with doing projects with the district. Can
Yes.
somebody from the,
Yeah.
with somebody with experience, please tell me how
someone
that
just
part of
bring
the
up the
rubric is
sheet?
scored
That's
on
scored.
experience?
It refers to the 20% experience. What is the definition of experience?
As Ms. Hall stated, Dr. Watts, is 20% of doing a project of similar scope.
So similar scope exact, or is it similar scope? What's my standard deviation? So if they've done a $5 million job with us, that doesn't say the same as 20 million, or is it got to be like line item 20 to 20? Or is it within, do you,
Yes, sir. It's not specific 20 to 20, but it has to be close enough that they say they built a school like the 612 we did. We just can't say they built like
a playground? Yeah, I guess so.
Okay. Mr. Kachmar.
Yeah, this has been a topic of discussion before, and the clarification we got from facilities was, you built a parking lot is not sufficient. You've built similar buildings, you've partnered on similar buildings, you've been a partner on a $60 million new school. That would give you some points. You're not getting all or nothing because you didn't do a project just like this one. So it's a more nuanced analysis.
Dr. Howard Hall.
Yes, Ms. Lebowski referenced not getting to the weeds of the rubric and the scoring, but the question becomes, who is scoring? Because it's been mentioned within this conversation about contractors actually being on the committee, on the board to make the selection. And is that a conflict of interest when you have contractors
The contract,
that are on a selection board scoring a rubric?
I think the only contractor that was on this one was the architect, and it wasn't the architect on Jacob G because they were not available, and so the architect from the Montgomery site. decided-
Slade Heaven's
You work for the
He
district?
works for the district.
No, he's a contractor.
He's a contractor.
He's not an employee.
He's got a
I mean, he's
He's a
a contractor for the district.
For the district.
For the
Oh,
district.
all of these,
Yes.
all of these are contractors for the district. If we're saying they're not employees of the district, they're contractors judging other
That gets into a whole nother conversation, so.
And that's why we need.
And that's one that I have raised for many times as well. So this just points to, it is a bigger, more complicated conversation that we are gonna solve in the next 2 weeks. And please, let's not hold this project hostage. That's just my last.
Okay, so, I'm going to make a few comments, and by the way, the comments that I'm going to make are comments that are personal. They're my perspective. From also growing up as an African-American male in America. We are in the year 2024. I'm going to say that again. We're in the year 2024. We represent all of Chatham County. We represent all of the taxpayers of Chatham County. We've heard from a group of taxpayers that are very upset. I get that. What I don't subscribe to, I don't subscribe to threats. I don't subscribe to you either choose my company or I'm going to tell people not to vote for East Lost. I don't subscribe to that. I believe that if you are a great contractor in the year 2024 and you have partnered with a general contractor, because that's how it works, you know? Some of these local contractors, they have partnered with other companies who are on this list. Those companies, because our contract is not with them, Our contract is with those companies. So if you didn't partner with the company that got the bid, I am not about to tell that company they got to use you. They have their own people that they work with. And by the way, I met someone from New Jack who absolutely lives here and has lived here for the last 2 years. So I want to dispel that. It is up to that. Again, our main contract is with the main construction company. They can't even make their contract with subcontractors until they get our contract. Now, just because Jack may be out of Jacksonville, does that mean that they don't use local laborers? I would be interested, and I'll ask staff to look into that, at how much they did use. But I am not, because I believe in merit. And I believe that if you are a great subcontractor, you're gonna get work. And I don't believe that the only way you get work is that we tell people that they gotta hire you because of the color of your skin, your gender, or anything else. I am not about to do that. It is the year 2024, and we've gone through enough. And at some point, at the end of the day, you know what I want? I want this renovation done on time, on budget, and I want it to be quality. Yes, I would love to see as many people that look like me or look like you or look like anyone working, because yes, I believe that our children do need to see all of that. But you know what would have been stronger for those kids to see? And I'm going to agree with Mr. Katchmar. You know what would be stronger for those kids to see? Is if the main contractor was a minority firm. Why are we settling for scraps? This school, those taxpayers that have those kids at Jacob G have waited way too long. And I don't want them to wait another day before we start working on getting them the school that they deserve. Thank you.
Mr. Chair, may I ask a question to follow up your statement?
Yes.
Was your reason for putting great emphasis on this is 2024 a way of signaling or signifying that racism and inequality to gender does not exist?
Please do not insult my intelligence.
No, I'm responding to your statement because you said that it is 2024, that we've gone through enough that we don't have to harp on this conversation. So my question is simply yes or no, if you desire to answer it. My question is that the reason why you put great emphasis on?
No, I put great emphasis on, are we going to have this conversation in 2033?
Yeah.
Hang on, let me finish. At what point do we stop harping on it? Am I saying that we don't have racism? Absolutely. I have never said that we don't. What I'm saying is, I believe that there are black, brown women subcontractors out there who are so amazing and are, by the way, are getting work, not because they are black, not because they are women, because they're good. Those are the contractors I want, okay? All right? So, no, I'm not saying that racism doesn't exist. What I'm saying is, and by the way, by law, we can't demand anything. We cannot demand anyone to only hire black people. Okay? Our policy encourages, and by practice, apparently, over the last 3 years, we've done a pretty darn good job. You know what I'd love to see? I would love in our pathways, in our construction pathways, that those students are learning how to be entrepreneurs and own their own construction companies. I'm just wanting us to aim higher. Okay. All right. Any other discussion? All right, I think we're ready to vote. All in favor of the recommendation from the superintendent, signify by raising your hand.
Borowski, yes. Mr. Catchmar, yes. Roger Moss, yes. David Bringman, yes. Michael Johnson, yes.
All those opposed?
Dr. Hoskins Brown, no. Cornelia Hall, no. Mr. Paul Smith, no. Dr. Howard Hall, no.
And we have, do we have an abstention?
It's 5-4.
Oh, we have 5. Oh, yeah, I'm sorry. So, it passes. Thank you very much. All right. Just one last comment for those that will watch this. Understand that all of the people sitting up here represent you, and they have shown their representation today. And while it has been passionate, they have spoken for you. And please appreciate them for doing that. And I also want to say a special thanks to our purchasing department. We respect you, and we thank you for the hard work that you do. All right. Is that it? Okay. I'll accept a motion to second?
Second.
Moved and seconded. All in favor? Thank you all. Have a great day.